Hi, I'm Doug from Dynamic Computing, and welcome to episode 82 of 10-Minute Amiga Retrocast. This week, we're going to be spending a little bit more time with my vampirized Amiga 1000 here. She's a beaut. If you haven't seen the episode on me upgrading to the Vampire in the Amiga 1000, I should put a link right up there. Take a look. It's a lot of fun. Today, we're going to be talking about FTP software and how you can use an FTP server, a free one, on your Windows, Mac, or Linux machine, and then connect to that from your Amiga to transfer files back and forth. Works really well. You don't need a vampirized Amiga for it. I'm just using it because it's here and I love it. But you can do it with virtually any Amiga with OS 2.x or above. Now really, any Amiga can be hooked up to the internet for $60 or less. You can get something like the Gurunet for your Amiga 500 or your Amiga 2000, which just hooks right up to a parallel port and gives you full Ethernet capabilities hooked right up to a parallel port and works pretty good. Those are about $60. You could also go with a plip box like this one right here. This also hooks up to the parallel port, has a little Arduino board on it, and will hook you right up to Ethernet. Now, they're not the fastest things in the universe, but they do a good job, and they're nice and reliable. If you've got an Amiga 600 or Amiga 1200, you're all set because you can just get a PCMCIA 16-bit card with either Wi-Fi or Ethernet, plug her right in, load some drivers, and you're off and running with one of those machines. With our big box computers, we can go with a plip box or a Gurunet. We could go with an X100 card, which is a brand new card from individual computers that you can plug right in. Get yourself a 100 base T Ethernet. That's about as fast as I've seen it. And there are some older Ethernet cards you can find online for your big box Amigas. Sometimes you need a little adapter to hook it up to Ethernet, but they're commonly available and they're not expensive. Now you still need a TCP/IP stack, basically TCP/IP software to get it to work, since the Amiga does not include it. It was really out before the days that stacks were commonly free. My favorite is Roadshow. I've talked about it before. I've got a couple of episodes where I cover Roadshow and how to install it. I'll link right up there. But other ones like Easy TCP/IP, I think that's what it's called, from Aminet, works just fine. If you have an older version of Miami or Genesis, it'll work fine for this project too. Now, I'm not going to be covering the setup and configuration of the cards. I've done that in other videos. You can take a look and see how that happens, but it's fairly easy, fairly straightforward. But let's talk a little about FTP itself. Now, FTP is an acronym for File Transfer Protocol. It's been used for decades now, since the 90s and even earlier, to take files from your computer and upload them basically to the internet or something similar to that. If you've ever published a website, you've probably used FTP without really even knowing it to push those files up to a website. If you've ever uploaded anything to Aminet, you've needed to use FTP to do that. It's a common thing and still used to this day. Now, the implementations of FTP that we've been using for decades are honestly quite insecure. So they've got a newer version called Secure FTP, which requires a certificate and a little harder to set up, but certainly not impossible, that actually gives you a more secure connection. Now, we don't particularly care about the secure connection because we're just going to be connecting directly to our PC in our home, so we're not really worried about hackers. Now, of course, some of you are yelling at your screens right now saying, "Oh, Doug, use Samba to network your Amigas." Well, I'll tell you what, guys, I've been in the industry for 25 years. Samba is a pain in the rear even for me. I mean, it's just, you look at the instructions, you're like, I got better things to do with my time than spend 5 hours trying to get this working. And then the newer version of Windows 10, they're going to be blocking things like that from connecting by default. So you have to go in and open up a bunch of backdoors in Windows 10. And FTP just works, and it does very similar things. So FTP will allow us to transfer files back and forth from our networked Amigas to our PCs Super, super easy and relatively fast. So if you've got, say, big WHD load files you want to transfer over to your Amiga, if you've got ADF files you want to move back and forth, no problem at all. FTP can handle it just fine. Let's start out by taking a look at what we need to do on the PC. Let's start on our PC by taking a look at the free FTP server software, FileZilla. I'll put a link in the description on where you can download that, but it's a totally free download. Once FileZilla launches, we need to configure it a little bit. So let's take a look at FileZilla. We're going to go into Edit, we're going to go into Settings, and we're going to look at our first screen here, General Settings. Listen on these ports. Port 21 is good. You can change it to whatever you want to, but just realize you have to change it on the firewall and you have to change the settings on your Amiga if you do change it. Next step here, let's take a look at this passive setting. We want to turn off passive mode by removing the check mark here. We don't need to use it since we're going to be connecting directly to it. We're going to go down here to FTP over TLS settings. We want to remove this check mark. Now it seems like it'd be great to go ahead and enable secure FTP and use secure FTP, but number one, the Amiga has a little bit harder time connecting to those, although it is possible to do, as you'll see. But this also saves you the trouble of having to either buy or generate a certificate to make the connection. It's just not worth it since we're just doing it locally on the machine. Now we want to create a user. So we're going to Edit, we go to Users. We're going to create a user. In this case, I clicked Add, and I created this user called 10mark, believe it or not. Enable account, set a password, something that's easy for you to remember. It's not going to be a problem if you set a password on there. Now, maximum connections, just leave these at 0. You don't need to limit the number of connections that you have since we're just doing this locally. This one is important. Remove the check mark from Force TLS for user logon. This is going to make sure that the secure connection is not enabled because we don't want that enabled for our Amiga. Shared folders. What you're going to want to do here is choose some folders to share that are viewable on the Amiga. So we'd click Add here, then you can scroll through and find the folder on your machine that you want to share. In this case, this happens to be on my Dropbox folder. So I'd go into Dropbox and I went into Amiga and I told it to share that. So the offline Dropbox folders and files are all shared on my Amiga. Now, in theory, you could share your entire hard drive, but don't do that. That's not necessary. Just have a folder where you keep your Amiga stuff that you want to move back and forth, create the folder in Windows, share it here, and give it full access so your Amiga has full capabilities of creating directories, deleting files if you want to. If you don't want it to have it, remove some of those. Speed limits, you don't need to worry about, just leave the defaults. IP filter, you don't need to worry about. Once we do that, believe it or not, we are done. We are absolutely done on the PC side. We just click OK and we make sure the server is started, active, perfect. The server is started and ready to go, but all is not finished in PC land. You have to open up port 21 on your local firewall. Not on your firewall on your router. You can keep that closed. But what you wanted to do is go to the firewall on your computer. This is a PC, so it's going to be the Windows firewall. We're going to go to Advanced Settings, and we're going to open up port 21. Inbound rules. Now, in my case, I've already got it set. You see there's FTP port 21, but what you'll want to do is create a new rule. You're going to let a port through. You're going to tell it TCP. You're going to say port 21 or whatever port that you've set up to use with your firewall. You're going to allow the connection on all of your firewall settings is fine, and you're going to give it a name. In this case, FTP. Now I've already got mine finished, so I'm not going to re-enable it. all that's doing is letting port 21 through your Windows firewall. This is not letting it through the firewall connected to your router, so you're still safe from the outside world. It just lets internal traffic work properly. It also doesn't hurt to set a static IP for your computer. Now in Windows, it's easy to do. You just go into your network settings here and change adapter settings. And you can go into your Wi-Fi, or you can go into your Ethernet settings and give yourself a static IP address, or you can log into your router and tell your router to give you the same IP address every time. It just makes it easier when you set up the connection on the Amiga, as you'll see in a few minutes, if that address always stays the same. Now back to your Amiga. Go ahead and just get on Aminet with your favorite web browser. In this case, I'm using iBrowse, or you can find another way to transfer this over. And we can look for a program called AmiFTP. And you're going to find a nice FTP client for your Amiga here, last updated in 2008. Let's see, there we go, 2006, AmiFTP.LHA. We'll go ahead and save that. And good enough. Now the other package we can look for is called RNOXfer. I'm going to be covering both of these today. You can download RNOXfer. Here is the Amiga OS version here for 68K. Just go ahead and click that and download that one. And you can try both of them and see which one you like better. We can just decompress it with your favorite decompression program like LHA. And you're going to decompress it, and it's going to create a folder like this. Here's AmiFTP. Once you decompress it, just click Install AmiFTP, and it will go through and let you select where things are installed. We're going to just install it over itself here in my work folder. And copy over old versions. English is fine. And the guide. And that's it. You've installed it. Now the RNOXfer I'll show you in a few minutes. Go into your AmiFTP folder that we've just installed, launch AmiFTP, and you're going to come up with a nice, easy to use interface here. Now to tell it to connect to your computer, you click on Connect To, and then you can click on New Site here, and it will allow you to create a new site, a new connection. In my case, I created one. It's called Tenmark. This is the IP address of my PC. This is the PC we just set up the server on. Port 21. When I download and move data back and forth, I want it to go to Work Downloads directory. My login name is Tenmark. My password is just a series of asterisks. Now here you can just keep your settings normal to Unix. It's not going to hurt anything. I've tried Unix and DOS and it works about the same. Now we've created our connection. We click on OK. Now here on this screen, you'll see there's a bunch of other FTP sites. Most of them don't work because this software is from 2006. You could safely delete these if you want to. Now your personal one, you might want to move to the top, so you select yours and then you can move yours up and down in the list to make it easy to find. We're going to click Connect here, enter password, highly complex password. Now look at this. It is literally reading the folders on my PC that quickly, the folders that I shared. I can go into any of these, like here's something from episode 60, and we've got some JPEG pictures. So we want to copy over Alien Ham and Alien JPEG and Big Flower and Budding Rose. Those are the ones we want to transfer over. Now to select multiple files, you just hold the Shift key down and single click each of the files. It's going to go to the Work Downloads folder by default because that's where I set it, but you can change that right here and you can tell it instead go to Work and then go to Docs, and then go to Pictures. There we go. Now when we click OK, and we click Get, it is going to connect to my PC, and it's just transferring those files right over just like that, and this quickly. Not bad for relatively large JPEG files. Copied them all over. Now, if you want to take something from your Amiga and you want to put it onto your PC, instead you'd click the Put button. Now we're browsing our Amiga. We can go here. Here is the downloads folder, and we're going to look in here. We're going to send Deli Tracker 2.32 LHA over to the PC. I've selected my file, click OK, and it's transferring it right over to the folder that was opened on my PC. Transfers it right over. Pretty cool, huh? So AmiTCP works well. Works fine for connecting to Aminet, but if you'll notice, there were no settings in there for secure FTP, which is the protocol we're not using, but we could use to make these connections secure. If you need to connect to secure FTP sites, you're not out of luck. There's another software program that we're going to take a look at that will do the same thing and will connect to secure FTP sites. The program we want to look at next is RNOXfer, or RNO Transfer, as it's probably actually called. Now this one is made by our same friends who made RNO PDF that I showed a couple of months ago on my PDF show about the Amiga and PDF files. You'll see the link right up there. Now, RNOXfer is created in the programming language called Hollywood, or the programming suite of utilities called Hollywood. Now, Hollywood is great because it's very powerful and it's transportable between platforms like Amiga OS 4, MorphOS, 68K Amigas. Then that's great, but it is a resource hog compared to coding it in, say, assembly language or C or something like that. So you're really going to need a more powerful Amiga. Now, they recommend an 020 with 8 megabytes of RAM, but I'll tell you, if you have less than an 030 running at 40 or 50 megahertz, you're not going to be happy with the performance, and you'll be better off with AmiTCP. But if you're like me and you have an 060 or an 040 or a Vampire like I have, it works absolutely brilliantly and is a very powerful program. Now, RNOXfer is nice because once you decompress it, that's really all you need to do. You don't need to run an installation file or anything like that. It's a pretty straightforward thing. You just decompress it and boom, there you go. Now, just double click it to launch the program. And if you're on a slow machine, that's going to take a few seconds to launch, but it should launch pretty quick for us. Now, you'll notice here, it's a split screen, which is nice. Here on the left, we've got the Amiga. Here on the right, you've got your FTP server, which we've not connected to yet. You want to create an address book entry for this and other FTP sites. So you do it a little differently. You create it first. Here, you make sure this is selected to FTP. Okay, if you choose FTP SE or I, that's going to be secure FTP, which this absolutely supports. But in our case, we're just using traditional FTP. Under host, you're going to want to put your IP address of your Mac or your PC right here. There's my 192.168.1.105. Under user, you type in the name, your username here. Let's see if we can get this a little bigger. Make that so we can see it more. There we go. That's better. Under password, guess what you put there? Your password. Port number is where you'd put your port number, of course. Passive, we want to uncheck here. Now, once you've created these, you can now go all the way to the left. Now click this button and it shows you your server list. And it will bring up the server that you've just created here. You would then click Add, and it will now save it in a list. So as you connect to other FTP sites on the internet, for example, you create them, then you go into your server list, then you click Add, and it will save them here. Now you can go in here and select them and connect to them. Now we're going to click Connect. Bada bing, bada boom. here are our folders. Same thing. Look at this. We've got an Atari folder. What the heck's in the Atari folder? Oh, get out of there. We're going to hit that to go back. See the symbol up there? That's going to go back. There's no parent folder like we're used to seeing. Let's take a look on audio. And here's some files. gnome.zip. These are some files from my pals at Pixel Gaiden when we did some digitizations of the evil gnome. Lots of fun. Over on the left here, you tell it where to copy it to. It defaults to RAM. Now you can change the default, absolutely. So we're going to go to work. We're going to tell it to go to downloads just for laughs. And we're going to make sure gnome.zip is there. And we're going to click download. And it is going to move it right over to the Amiga. You can see it right there, copying right over. That was about a 6 megabyte file, I think. And no, that was only 600K. It's very short. All right, to move things back the other direction, here's image effects install. That's pretty big. We're not going to do that. We're going to find PDF. And here is RNO PDF for ECS and AGA Amigas. We're going to copy that over. We're going to copy that over to the PC. We can tell it to put it in, let's say, the 10 mark episode 83 folder on the PC. Now we're going to click upload, and away she goes. We're now transferring from the Amiga to the PC. You can do this back and forth all day long, and it works just beautifully. Now there are some other cool settings. If you go up into the menu and choose settings, you can look at some programs that you can use that will auto launch if you click the appropriate file in the FTP. So let's say you're looking at your picture directory at IFF files that you have stored on your PC. You can double click a picture and it will automatically launch multi-view to look at the pictures. If you click a text file, it will automatically launch Ed or Reddit or whatever text-based program. When you've set your appropriate programs, you just click save, no problem at all. So now here's an example of that. We've set multi-view to handle pictures. I've browsed over to my PC. I'm looking right on my laptop right here. Here's 8-color cookie VIP. Double click that, transfers it right over, opens it right up in multi-view. How cool is that? Now the layout on RNOXfer is a little bit different. Maybe not 100% standard Amiga, but it works beautifully. Here's my recommendations. If you get this program, send the guy a couple of bucks via PayPal. He's got the links right on his website, which I'll link to down here. Also on Aminet, he's got his links there. Just help him out a little bit and remind him that we do want him to continue making cool utilities and programs for our Amigas. To sum up, FTP on the Amiga is relatively easy and relatively powerful. If you've got a weaker Amiga, maybe 030 or less, use AmiFTP. It works fine. You're not going to get secure FTP, but who cares? We're doing this on our own little home network here. If you have a more powerful Amiga, go ahead and use RNOXfer. You're supporting a current and currently updated program. You're helping out the Amiga community, and it's really a powerful program and really useful to use. I actually use that a little bit more often than AmiFTP. Since I've put the FTP server on my laptop, I've seldom needed to take my CF card or SD card or flash drive or whatever and move things back and forth between my PC and my Amiga. Most of my Amigas are on a network, so I just FTP into my server, transfer back and forth what I want, I'm done. I wrote the script today on my Amiga in the Final Writer program. I saved it as an RTF file, put it on the FTP server, uploaded it, went over to my PC. There it is. Let's touch it up a little bit. Let's print it out. No problem at all. You can do this for graphics files all you want to. You can make ADF files of your original floppy disks on your Amiga. So you use something like GoADF to make actual ADF files. Send those ADF files to your PC through your FTP site. Boom, done. Takes like 15-20 seconds to upload one. I would like to thank my wonderful patrons for helping me out and supporting the show. I really, really do appreciate it. If you'd like to help me out, just pop on over to patreon.com/10mark, and for as little as $2 a month, you can make it on this prestigious list of wonderful patrons, which is superimposed over a lovely picture from the Amiga Art Contest 2020. Thanks, guys. So, thanks for joining me today. Please like and subscribe. I love to hear from you guys too. So comment below. Tell me what FTP program you use on the Amiga. Tell me what other way you network your Amigas together. Some people use the Amiga Explorer. That works pretty well. Some people like to use Samba. That works pretty well. But tell me what you use and what you like about it, and maybe I'll cover it on a future episode. Follow me on Twitter at 10mark1. But until next time, this is Doug from 10 Minute Amiga Retrocast, signing out.